passing by and I found out this camp's happening. Originally I just came because I wanted to get a few techniques from these guys because they're doing amazing seva. I was honoured to be asked to speak, so this is a good opportunity for me to get to know some of the Americans. So basically the theme Shabad we're discussing, I have to pull it out because I'm not the best with my memory, but just pyare sone ho, just aage maar chaliye. And the next pankti that comes is Drig Jeevan Sansar Taake Pasha Jeevana. So we're discussing this, and I want to explore what Maharaj is saying. When we read the English translation, which is by Professor Master something else, I forgot the guy's name, but generally that's the English translation we read. It's a bit misinterpreted. So I would say it's a bit like kind of puts us on the wrong path. But I want to ask, we'll go by Pankti. Jis pyare sone ho. Can anyone tell me what that means? So pyar, we know the meaning, we all know the meaning of the word pyar, right? It means love. Pyare and neho both mean love. So Maharaj is saying just pyare, so that pyara as a Maharaj for us, sone ho, which we love. So Maharaj is saying that beloved one that we love, this aage maar chaliye. So may we give our whole life, may we give our everything in front of this one we love, this beloved being. And then after that, which is another beautiful bhakti, and it kind of tones it down for us, is Drig Jeevan Sansar. So wasted is this worldly life. Drig means kind of wasteful, pointless. Is this worldly life, Jeevan Sansar, Taake Pasha Jeevana. And so the translation here is, to live after he dies is to live a worthless life in this world, which I think it can be a bit confusing. And Professor Sahib Singh, we're probably all familiar with Professor Sahib Singh, he's usually the accepted, and the Panthi is the accepted translations and the steek of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. Of course this is just another opinion, so it doesn't have to be right. But how he writes it is that basically, Drig Jeevan Sansar, wasted is this life, Taake Pasha Jeevana, when we turn our head, when we turn our back to Maharaj and we walk the other direction. So basically the light, the balance here is, beautiful is that life, if we're, and it's such a worthy life, if we give our head, if we give our life to the beloved, and wasteful is that life if we turn back. That's the basic concept, and from what I found out from Vijay is that this is the theme for this camp. Does anyone want to input into this before we go any further? What does it mean to give everything to Maharaj, and what does it mean to turn our backs? Because I think there's a big misconception in this topic. I think there's a misconception of what it means to give. Even simple things like Amala Shekana, does that mean to give? Or is it just another karma these days that we're following? And I say, can anyone shed some light before we move forward? Because for this to work, we're all older people, we're all similar age. For this to work successfully, for a workshop to work, as opposed to a lecture, is usually best when there's a lot of input. And it's lively and people, I know you guys are all smart people. I'm not the only one here sitting here thinking about the Shabad. So can anyone shed some light? Even something simple, what does it mean to give everything to Maharaj? Anyone have anything, even from the name we do?
Tan, man and tan.
That's exactly what I was thinking actually. Tan, man and tan. We're giving our tan, man and tan. Can anyone remind me of the Bhakti from Anand Sahib?
Tan, man, tan, samsab, garko.
That's from the ending poetry of Anand Sahib. And so Maharaj is saying like my mind, my body, my soul, everything towards the Akaal Purkhana. And this expression is of love. When we look at the next one, then it's the opposite, right? We're turning our back. So we're the tan and the man and the tan. So our wealth, our body and our spirit is when we're taking that away. Now there's a beautiful pankti from Maharaj. It is Sosik Sakha Banda Pai Jo Gur ke Pane Vich Ave Apne Pane Jo Chale Pai Vichur Chota Khave. Is anyone familiar with this one? It's very direct and it's very beautiful. What Maharaj is saying is that Sosik Banda Pai, that Sikh is a brother, he is a beloved that walks in the path of Akaal Purkh, and this is very direct, very harsh Bani. And Apne Pane Jo Chale Pai, the one who walks in his own path, such as the second Pankti. I guess this kind of just matches. There's two of the same Shabads in two Panktis as well. Apne Pane Jo Chale Pai, Vichur Chota Khave. So the person who walks his own path, he eats filth. Now, when we talk to certain people, when I do my evening workshop, I'm going to do a small presentation in the evening. I'm going to ask everyone, about who's Amritdhari and who's not for the purpose of not for that purpose. I just want to see who's into that. But basically, when we talk to people who are not Amritdhari, a lot of people have this. They'll be very harsh. They'll take this very panti picture to Akaal and they'll give harsh treatment to another person. Right? So can anyone shed light what that actually means? Because sometimes we get too spiritual, sometimes we look too far into the future. We start looking at nark, we start looking at heaven. So and we're like, Asha, oh banda, he's not walking the path of Maharaj, he's going to go to hell. And we think too far. And then when we think about that, when we think of this aage mar chaliye, we think that, okay, if I do this, then I'm going to go forth, and in the next world I'm going to be great. But I want us to bring it down and kind of just bring it down to earth, be realistic about it. What is the benefits and what is the following of the path? What is giving out? Can anyone tell me now? What does it mean? We guru de pane vich chalna hai. What does it mean to do that? How do we do that? Some very basic examples. Guys, come on.
Maybe just keep your case.
Yes. Very simple example is giving you a case. Beautiful example, and any other examples. Let's just list a few and then we'll explore further.
Do our simran.
Do a lot of simran, nitnem karna, and Hanji? Right, another beautiful example. This list goes on, right? Hanji? Seva is a beautiful one as well. Seva is one of those things, I find Seva as one of the best investments a person can make. Jab banda simran karda hai, or back in, like, it's hard. You're sitting down, you're kind of forcing yourself. Not every person can sit down and sit for 3-4 hours. Not every one person can do a full 1 hour of Nitnem. However, Maharaj has given us such a beautiful gift that it's still an option for someone who wants to be spiritual. They can go out and do Seva. So it's a beautiful way to connect with Maharaj. Is there any other examples? If we look at the Rahat, what Maharaj has given us, what else is there? There's things we can follow such as Nitnem, Amrit Vela, Naam Japana, and all these things. So when we get all this, we categorize this all as the path to follow. Maharaj Gandhe Sosak Saka Banda Bhai is basically Guru Sahib's giving us a status close to him. What is their status in the worldly life? So we look at the spiritual sense, we look at the afterlife. We always skip to the afterlife. We always say that this person is going to benefit through Sachkhand or through becoming an angel or Gursik. But let's turn it down and bring it back to ourselves so that it's more practical. Because when we look at the spiritual avastha, when we look at those, Virji did a really good job just now explaining some of the Mahabooks he's met. But I personally feel when we start talking about those people, we put an expectation on ourselves that's not really realistic. We usually can't achieve that. Can anyone think of now simple examples, waking up early in the morning, doing your nitnem? Can anyone think of very practical result of that?
Getting a head start of your day, like pretty much.
Beautiful.
Having everything.
Yeah. Well, getting a head start of the day, and studies are proving now that this habit of waking up early as opposed to being lazy and waking up late, it actually improves your brain activity. I think it was Texas University in 2008. They conducted a survey. I'm not too sure how your, what's it called, the something GP? GP, yeah. We don't have anything like that, so I'm not too familiar. Just to correct me, 1 is alright, 2.5 is very good. No?
3 is alright, 4 is really good.
Okay, let's just say 3 and 1, because again, I'm not too familiar. However, when they did these studies, they found that the person who was surveying an earlier wake-up time, they were coming up with these high GPAs. So as is showing that there is a system Maharaj has given us. This lifestyle isn't just something that we can become the head of people. As a practical lifestyle that works now. Now, coming back to the theme Shabad and coming back to the theme of the camp, which is Guru Angad Dev Ji. Guru Angad Dev Ji gave tan and man. So when we look at Guru Angad Dev Ji giving tan and man, a perfect example is when Guru Sahib gave the hukam of eating a carcass. We're all familiar. I don't think I need to go into the sakis of Guru Angad Dev Ji.
Actually, Baji, if you could.
Yeah?
Because we're not all familiar.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So I'll go through it briefly because I want to emphasize on something else. But basically what happens, Guru Pailena Ji, when he meets Guru Sahib, he's not even aware that Guru Sahib is with him. And that's another presentation we can do completely separate, is how Maharaj is always with us. Pailena Ji originally met Guru Sahib. He was on his way to meet Guru Nanak Dev Ji because he had heard the Shabads, And he was on his way to meet Guru Sahib, and on the way, an old elderly man said that I'll guide you to the Guru. Now Bhai Lenaji let this elderly man basically carry his horse all the way to the Darbar, and when he got to the Darbar, he actually found out that the elderly man that guided him to the Darbar was Guru Nanak Dev Ji himself. Oh, a lot of nimat hit him, a lot of self-pity, self-disgust hit him. Going further though, he stuck basically Jorgesi Maharaj Di Charna Dina. He was stuck to Guruji's feet. So much love he had with Guru Sahib. Guru Sahib throughout his Jeevan tested Bhai Lenaji. And the way he would test him, when he would give him extreme tests to see how much he would follow the hukum. And as actually noted that a lot of people thought that Baba Buddha Ji, who was a major Sikh character, he was around from the first Guru to the sixth Guru, they thought that Baba Buddha Ji would become the second Guru. But it was in fact Bhai Lenaji, and it was due to this test. So the test I was about to mention was that at one point Guru Sahib, or Bhai Lenaji no brother, and he basically tells Bhai Lenaji to go eat the carcass. There's a dead body there. He tells, and now we all understand from our perspective that it's galta. We're not going to go and eat a dead body. One side is eating meat, and the other side is cannibalism. However, Bhai Lenaji, he puts his hands forward, and Satbhajan Maharaj basically, he goes forward, and when he picks up the cloth off this carcass, it turns out to be fruits and vegetables, and basically vegetarian food. Now the point of the Sakhi is Tanman and Tan, basically giving everything you have and giving it all to the Guru, accepting the hukam. Now, we are not as privileged as Guru Angad Dev Ji to have Guru Nanak Dev Ji sitting us and giving us tests and this modern day saying, okay, do this now, do this now. We would probably make the excuse to ourselves that if Guru Sahib was sitting right next to us, Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj was, but if a physical body that we perceived as a physical body was sitting next to us, then we'd do it. If Guru Nanak Dev Ji was sitting right next to me and he said that you have to do 10 bani, then we do it. We like to tell ourselves that. However, it's very possible to test yourself now, and this is when I come into the whole point of what is the bana that Maharaj gives. I'm going to emphasize mainly on Amrit Vida and Rahat in this workshop. Veerji, how much time do you actually have?
About an hour.
An hour?
Until 12.
Until 12? Very long. So we're going to explore Bhai Nandlalji's Bani. Okay? And Bhai Nandlalji's Bani, which explores basically a very basic lifestyle. The reason why I like, actually before I move on, does anyone know who Bhai Nandlalji is? Can anyone tell me who Bhai Nandlalji is? Just a quick briefing on him.
ਸਿੱਖ ਸੀਗੇ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਬਾਣੀ ਵੀ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ
ਨਾਲ ਬਾਣੀ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਸੀ Bhai Nandlalji, briefly because I'm just it's off topic, I talk too much about him. Bhai Nandlalji was born in Afghanistan area. He moved to his local pen, which was near as Malwa near Punjab. He became a court poet in the court of Aurangzeb for Aurangzeb's son, who became later the next king, which was Bahadur Shah. So he was the poet form, he was the main poet. Eventually he caught the attention of Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb loved his poetry, loved his work, and he asked him to become his co-poet, and he said, I privilege you with death or Islam. He gave it as a present. He said, you only got one problem in your poetry, that's your Hindu. So you can become Muslim or you die. Bhai Nandlalji left. He fled to Anandpur. Anandpur Sahib, I'll talk about that tonight as well, had a reputation for being a cultural center. And so what happened was, Bhai Nandlalji came to Guru Sahib, and he basically became one with Guru Sahib. He would stay with Guru Sahib, and his Jeevan was complete. He was noted for having the most generous lingar in Anandpur. His poetry was beyond comprehension. If you read it now, you'll still be in awe of how great his poetry is. It's hard to understand, however, for our people, because no one really studies Persian anymore. So it would be great if people can invest time into that. So what I was trying to say was, in 4 years before the Amrit Sanjad, so 1699, the Amrit Sanjad, 1695, Bhai Nandlalji approached Guru Gobind Singh Ji, or Guru Gobind Rai at that time, and he says, you talk really highly of your Gursikhs. You really talk really highly of your Gursikhs, and you tell us that we have to have a strict lifestyle, that we have to follow a certain procedure, we have to do this. Why don't you tell us what it is? Now before I move forward, the reason why I like to do Vichar of this Rahat It's because it's not a Rehat Murada, it's a Rehatnama. And the difference there is that when we talk about Rehat Murada, then Baji will be like, no, Ani. And then Kanji will be like, no, get out of here, not that. So we're going to skip that completely and stick to Rehatnama. And Rehatnama is more like a lifestyle rather than a code of conduct. And so this is a conversation and you can read this yourself. It's beautiful. This is Guru Gobind Singh Ji's own wording, as is written by Banandlalji. And so it goes, Gursik Rehat, Suno Mere Meet. And this is how he speaks to Banandlalji in the Sangat. So dear Gursikhs, listen to this Rehat, listen to this lifestyle. Ut par baate karo hit jeet. Wahe Guru par mant so jap, kar ishnan pare jap jap. And I'm going to pause there and take that one section and we're going to reflect that. So we start off with the first part, which was Gursik Rehat, so we meet Ut Parvate. So can anyone tell me what Parvate means? Early in the morning, Amrit Vela. Ut Parvate karo hit cheat. And anyone can tell me what hit cheat means? Motivate chitlana, as again chitla apana. Same thing basically. So Ut Parvate karo hit cheat. Wake up early in the morning and focus your mind. And this is very interesting because there's a lot of controversy on the simple idea of doing Amrit Vela. I don't know why there is, but there's a lot of controversy on doing Amrit Vela and doing Simran. If you hear some of the pracharaks out there, they're saying that they're acting like parrots. And you've probably heard that one. There's a very common remark that those people who jap naam repeat the Guru Mantra, they're just repeating like parrots. And they use a Shabad from Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, which is Ram Ram Karta Jag Fare, Ram Na Paya Jai. So the whole world is saying Ram Ram. In our sense, the whole world is saying Vaheguru Vaheguru, but we're not attaining Vaheguru. So that's the argument put forward. And then there's also that there's no such thing as Amrit Vela in the morning. Amrit Vela is only, it's not a prescribed time. Amrit Vela is the whole time. For Guru Sikh, which is a true point, for Guru Sikh, Har Vela Amrit Vela hona jayega. However, Maharaj has actually given us direct hukam. Now, we look at Guru Granth Sahib Ji and we have a lot of spiritual bani, and it's hard to relate to the physical world. But this is the benefit of having Banandlalji's bani. Because Banandlalji's bani was very direct. Guru Gobind Singh Ji directed it not to be spiritual, not to be very philosophical, but a very direct instruction on how to have a healthy lifestyle. Now, can anyone actually go through there, because this is a workshop, it's not a lecture, can anyone go through their own head and think of any other Shabads from Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj or other baniya that link us back to Amrit Vela? Hint, Hanji? That's a beautiful Shabad. Can you repeat it for everyone, please? And that's another beautiful Shabad. Another one, can anyone remember from Japji Sahib? I think like the
Amrit Vela
Vichar. It comes up continuously. Now here's one that's very beautiful, and I've got the Pankti and we'll go through the Shabad when I pull it out. Because with all these Shabads, you can always pull out the philosophical trick. Now Bani said, Uttanam Jap, that could be speaking to your soul. We do Utte, do Naam Jap, meaning wake up consciously. Or Amrit Vela Sach Naam Vidiyai Vichar. We Har Vele Sach Naam Ni Vidiyai Vichar Gani. All these Panktis can be flipped upon you. But there's one Pankti I found in Maharaj which is two Shabads that come in Maharaj that are very direct. One that everyone's familiar with, one that no one really discusses. And the one that no one discusses goes basically along the lines that oh my gosh, it just slipped my mind. I just thought of it. We'll go to the other one, which is so Gur Satkur ka jo Sikh Akaal, which is the one everyone's heard. So Palke Ut Har Naam Tyave. Palke, the word means early in the morning. There's also the Shabad in Rag and Dol, which goes Hoye Ketur Mano Mere Pai Dubda Dur Karo Levlaya Har Naame Ke Hoga Jori Gurmukh Vaso Safa Vishay. Enmit Pasa Tal Peer Gurmukh Naam Japo Dunati Antkal Ne Lage Peer. And then Maharaj says Ut Par Baat Karo Ashnan and Soye Har Arade. That's the Pankti that comes forward. So the word Parvat actually means morning. And then the other Pankti, which has slipped my mind, but it basically says, it is Chothe Pair Sabake. Now can anyone tell me what Sabah means? Morning. Morning in this context, as per the Mahan Kosh, it means Rat. So Chothe Pair Sabake Surtiyan Upje Chao. So in the fourth watch of the night, our mind awakens. And it's a very direct, Maharaj is directly referring to time. So again, I'm just going through the Rehat now, and I'm just kind of breaking it down into a very provable sense. It's awesome here because it's snowing. We don't get to snow like this in Australia. So after that, Maharaj goes on from saying Ut Parvadi Karo Hajid, Vaheguru Parmanta Sajap. So then we get on to the next line. And this is another controversial line, because like I said, you have people coming in. It's a very common belief that Vaheguru Parmanta Japna Nahi Chahida. And then it's just a karam kand, which means it's just a habit. It's just a ritual we're picking up, and we're acting like parrots. And then Maharaj doesn't want us to do that. Can anyone think of examples now from other banis, Bhai Gurdasji's Bani, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, that refer to Guru Mantar? A very straightforward one. And now the philosophy of Guru Mantar kind of opens up here. Can anyone tell me what the philosophy that's been discussed? This very closely links with what Bhai Jagrai Singh was just speaking about in terms of Home. Anyone can shed some light on that? Again, you guys know stuff, but I don't know why you don't want to share it. It's like if everyone's facing, okay, let's all face VG there. VG, can you shed some light on Nam Japana? It doesn't have to be technical, anything works, because it's another mind Darbar Vicha.
Like, you want me to say what it does?
Yeah, whatever you feel it does.
Well, we're supposed to do it to be a better person.
To be a better person. A very interesting point on that, and we'll come back to that one. It's very well put, Vaji. Anyone else? Vaji Vicky?
Okay, wait, I gotta click my thought. I guess it helps you connect to Vaheguru, because when you jap his Naam, Naam Japana, it helps you connect to Vaheguru, like he hears you and then he helps you out, like how Bhai Jagrai Singh was saying, he connects you with Vaheguru, you become one with him.
No, that's it, and that's exactly the scope of it, that's correct.
When I hear Vaheguru, I think of Talve Mola Hamesha Jinda Ast from Bhai Nandalal Ji Bani. So basically, whoever is a seeker of God is going to live on forever.
Yeah.
And we're seeking God through Vaheguru. So
and that's beautiful.
Talve Mola.
And it's amazing how Maharaj puts it. And when we look back at the Pankti Veji gave us, which was Vaheguru Guru Mantar Jap Home Koi.
Vaheguru Guru Mantar Hai Jap.
Sorry, Vaheguru Guru Mantar Hai Jap Home Koi. So now let's break it up. Vaheguru Guru Mantar Hai. Basically, when we're saying Vaheguru, it's very straightforward. We're saying Vahe means wondrous or great. Vahe, and Guru means Hanera, to light, so to rule. So from darkness to light. So wondrous is this light. Not wondrous is this Lord, not wondrous is this Guru. Wondrous is this light that dispels darkness. Now how does it dispel darkness? Can anyone share with me what is darkness in this world? Maya. Yes, what is Maya? Beautiful. Can we get more in depth? What is darkness? And Banji, what's darkness in your life? If you don't mind sharing. Home. Yes, home is the biggest darkness, is the biggest disease. Is there any common everyday examples? Maybe something in our qualities, maybe bad qualities. Banji? No, that's fine. Anyone, Banji? Gossiping is a big darkness. Raji?
Just culture.
Anji?
Culture, there's that one. It's like being lazy.
Being lazy, yeah, being lazy is darkness, because we kind of just, the aura, we're just killing it down, huh? In terms of darkness, when Guru Sahib refers to darkness, it's very straightforward. Darkness is the side of us that wants us to be me. And Banji said home, which was very small on. Every other answer was spot on as well. Darkness is that me getting angry. Darkness is me getting jealous. Darkness is me getting all these negative feelings. So if Guru Mantar is getting away darkness, what's it replacing with? Light. So can anyone shed light on what is the light?
Sorry, but did you say this was the Maya, which is causing all this anger, jealousy? Or
So are you clear on the meaning of Maya?
not really. No.
Anyone want to share what Maya actually translates into? Because we call it like as Maya is a Panchod. But we don't actually say what Maya means. Yeah, those are the forms of Maya. What is the actual translation? If you wanted to give an English translation, what's the best fitting word? Sorry?
Attachment?
Attachment is more.
Is it Maya just money? Like if you...
We refer to Maya as money. There's a broader word. You always see it on the screens.
Mammon.
Yeah, mammoth is very good. And the word I was looking for is illusion. Everything you see around you is an illusion. Full stop. We are illusions. We're only created by ourselves. We're only a state of mind. We're only relative to how we think. In reality, once our chaining thing, Once you stop thinking in a certain way, you stop existing in a certain way. If you get what I'm saying. Once I stop thinking about food in a certain way, the food doesn't exist in that way. You know, that lolly isn't a large for me anymore. If I stop thinking of it like that. It's an ever-changing thing. The only true thing is Akaal. The only true thing is Guru Nanak Dev Ji sitting inside of you. And the rest is all illusion. And we know it's illusion. We all practically know it's illusion in our heads because we see it changing around us. And we feel it changing. When you're a little kid, you see lettuce or cucumber or something like that as a very like a bad thing. But when you grow up, something so simple becomes delicious when you have a sandwich, right? And so it is an illusion. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just something that exists. Now the effect of this illusion, we can't call anything good or bad. That truck can't be good for me, nor can it be bad for me. It's just an illusion. However, it has an impact on us. And that impact is the darkness. So that truck might come swerving around and crash into my family member. And that enrages me. See, it's a chain reaction. That enraging is the effect of Maya. And so Maya works through Kam. So the illusion is affecting you negatively through Krodh, through anger. You get the chain reaction here. Basically, going back to Vijay's Pangti now. When you look at this chain reaction, let's say a friend, we're all adults here so we can talk openly. A friend that you've grown up, for me it'll be like a female friend that I've grown up with all my life, we're very good friends, and then I have a Kam attack. Now she was never bad, she was never good, she was just existing. And it was just later on that it attacked me in a certain way that it gave me Kam. The existence of Maya reacted to me through Kam. The existence of that Maya might not react the same way to someone else. They might not be attracted in the same way. And so if you get the chain reaction here, money, right now with me, I've lost care for money. I don't really care too much about it. So I can pick it up. We were counting money at Stockton Gurudwara Sahib yesterday, just counting all the Maya that came in. And so for me it was just paper. However, the next day, I might actually think, damn, I want this. And so I've gone into greed. And that's the darkness that's kind of engrossing my body. And it's destroying who I am. Because who are we really? Kahe Nanak, Elke Nanak, man tu jot roop hai, apna mool pashan. Hey man, hey soul, you're a jot roop, you're a beautiful being. Recognize this origin. So we're beautiful beings, we're beautiful souls. However, this chain reaction that in his own laughter Guru Nanak Dev Ji has created is causing us to forget that mood. If we've read Asadi Var, we get the Shabad, Api ne aap sajiyo, api ne rachiyo now. So Guru Akaal Purakh, he created this, he created the Naam, which is the goodness. Api ne aap sajiyo, api ne rachiyo now. Dui kudrat saj ke kar asan ditho jao. And everyone has a personal perception of Akaal Purakh, na? Actually, let's discuss. Everyone, because Gurudev Mata, Gurudev Pita, Gurudev Swami Pita. And the beautiful Shabad that explains different forms of Akaal Purakh. Can anyone kind of shed light on how they feel Akaal Purakh is in their life? Just so that I'm engaging everyone. I don't like talking for too long. Angie, what's Akaal Purakh for you? Yeah.
It's like Guru's hukum, or like Girpa.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. This is grace. Girpa is grace, is mercy. Banji, what is Akaal Purakh? What is God for you? A teacher. That's a beautiful way. Yeah, that's it basically. He does teach us how to become more supreme. Baji, what is Akaal Purakh? What is God for you? Or what does he mean in your life?
I think it's depend on meaning, like if we think he's my friend, like Shabad, Mata,
Gurudev Mata, Gurudev Pita, Gurudev Swami Parmeshwar. And it goes on with the same. And it's beautiful because the amazing thing about Waheguru, about what we say in English, God, is that it's a personal relationship. And that's why I wanted to ask everyone else, my personal way I perceive God is very funny, how I perceive Waheguru. I perceive Waheguru, and I hope no one takes offense to this, as a child who's just having fun and just throwing us all, like he's got a big ball and he's just shaking us around. And if you go back to the Shabad I mentioned earlier, Dui Kudrat Sajke Karasan to Chao. The Dui Kudrat Anjibai
Dui Kudrat Saji
Saji, sorry, my Santi is a bit off. I'm trying to remember all the Shabads. And he created the second Kudrat being Maya. So one is Naam, the second is this illusion, and he just sits back and he just enjoys. And that's, for me, that's how I like to see Maharaj. Now, the chain reaction here we've discovered is that we have an illusion that Maharaj has created. We don't know his purpose. We just know that he's created it and he's just watching. He's created it. He's put us in this pit and he wants to see how we react. Now the reaction is that if something happens with this Maya, we get affected through Kam. We get affected through Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Ahankar, so many other things. Now what's the next step? Because now darkness is entering us. And this is exactly what VG was talking about. What do we attain? What's the negative thing we attain from this? Can anyone? Negative energy. Yeah, there's a word for it. And Jagral VG spent a lot of time.
Karma.
Not karma.
You talked about like how it builds to negative habits.
Negative habits. Karma is a good answer, but it's not the answer I'm looking for. Reason being is because there's something that comes and goes. This is something that's ever present. So something that's ever present that's stopping me from being, what is it? In between me and God. Ego. So the translation for Homme, I would say, is not ego. Ego is a different thing, but ego is the word I was looking for. Homme. So we've got this chain reaction, and the end result is Homme. And the more we have of this, the less we have on the other side. Maharaj says in Bani that we have a battle going on in our head, and there is either Gurmat or Manmat. And that's the fight going on right now. So that chain reaction you can see is that there's the existence of something which isn't real. It's trying to trick us that everything is real, and that the next isn't. So the chain reaction happens, and we have anger. Anger comes inside of us. When we feel angry, it's because we are angry. When I feel angry, it's because I am angry. And that's the me coming into me now. If I feel greedy, it's because I am greedy. I want to be greedy. Okay? So that's basically that darkness of the Guru Mantra. That is the darkness. Can anyone now, in sense of we have Kam, Krodh, Lomo, and God, we have all these bad traits. What's the balancing with that? So what is the light? If that's the darkness, which leads to Homme, what's the light?
Naam.
Naam. Naam is the light, but what happens inside of us? Because we don't just, in a sense we do become Naam. But what replaces Kam? What replaces Krodh? Sat Santokh Daya Kamavo. These type of qualities. Etan Karni Sar. This is the way of life. And that's the chain. And that's basically around what VG was explaining around. This is the whole chain that's happening. So Kalme Hopon Gun Goban Gai. And let us in one of the Shabads we read sometimes. Kalme Hopon Gun Goban Gai. And Kaljub, in this dark time, the only good action is singing the praises of Gun Goban Gane. So now singing Gun, that doesn't have to be in a speaking sense. It doesn't have to be. You can sing Gun of Akaal Purakh through your physical being, through your thinking, through your acting. Because the Gun of Akaal Purakh are Sat, are Daya, are Santokh, all these good qualities. And so this is how the balancing happens. When you break off from the illusion, and when you look towards Naam, when you Naam Jap, when you Jap the Guru Mantra, when you do the Ardas to Maharaj, give me this light. What you're doing is you're requesting Maharaj for your gun. And if I was to ask everyone, how do you know? How do you see, how do you perceive Akaal Purakh's power in this world? Can you tell me, how do you physically see Vaheguru? We all have our ways. I'm hoping someone clicks on to what I'm saying. Now, do you have any idea what I mean? How do you see God today? We aren't technically saying, we've been told Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, the stronger our connection becomes with Guru Sahib, the more we see it. But this isn't the God we see. We don't see God through Guru Granth Sahib Ji. We don't see God through Sakhis. There's another thing that gives us God. Can anyone tell me? It's the opposite of all those traits as the ones we just discussed. It's qualities. Your connection with God is through other people's qualities. When you find truth, that's how you see God. That becomes what you see of God. You know God as the truth. You know God as the contentment. You know God as the pyar. That's generally how everyone kind of, if you break it down, do you guys get what I'm going with this? So yes, we see that there's a physical being, that there's another being, but our connection with this being exists through his qualities. Our love with Akaal Purukh is because he's our Father that blesses us with Sat, with Santok, with Daya. So now the chain reaction I was describing earlier is that when we have all this darkness, so the building of darkness, the building of ego inside of us is actually the building of qualities that belong to me. Anger belongs to me, lust belongs to me. The opposite of that, Jap Home Koi, is that when we chant, when we ask for Maharaj for his light, we're replacing those bad qualities which give us Home with good qualities from Maharaj which give us Nam. A person living in Nimrata and Sat and Santok and has none of those other five, then he is one with God. He realizes this isn't me, this is God. These are his qualities. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji's existence inside of you is the existence of his guns. Okay? So, and then moving forward basically on the by Nandalal Ji, does anyone want to add anything into this before we move forward? Or have any questions regarding this whole kind of circle?
So basically, get rid of your dark, like the...
Yeah. Well, that's it. You've got it basically. You've got the grass. And that's basically what it is. How in Japi Sahib we say we're washing the vessel, right? We're washing the dirt off our banda. So basically that's what's happening. And that's a metaphor. Our soul, imagine as our soul as a water. And it's stained. So the more we engross in this illusion, the more we stain it. But if we ask for Maharaj to come in, then we're putting clean water in. And the dirty water is going out. Or if we look at a vessel, we're washing the vessel, we're cleaning the vessel, and the shine's coming out. When we invest more time in the illusion, which makes us react in those other qualities, then we're giving a stain. Because now we're saying it's me, 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 me. And that's the whole, ho ho mama bachok hove, duja meto eko hove. That's the whole game. And Sid Ghosh Maharaj explains. The whole game is just me, 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 get rid of me, 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 and become one with the other one. Become one with the truth. So that's the part of that, Hannah. So we have Anji Bandi.
Just you can finish your thought. I just want to add to it.
Okay, has been an hour?
No, I was going to add to that. You were in the middle of a sentence.
Okay, no, that's alright. Please add.
Okay, I was just going to say another illusion of Maya is thinking of Akaal Purukh as the other or outside of ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah,
And,
beautiful.
and it just reminded me when you started talking about water, but I have a different water analogies. Somebody kind of told me this when I was younger, that if you imagine, Akaal Purukh has an ocean, and we are just, imagine like a cup or something that's filled with that water. So you are in, the water inside the cup, and you think that you're separated, but you remove, like getting rid of your ego is like removing that cup, and well, therefore then you're one with that ocean. And in Gurbani, there's another example. Guru Sahib says, "Har har jan tu ek hai, vichar kachna hai, jal te upajit rang jo jal hi dikha samaye." So he says, like Akaal Purkh's sevak is like a wave. Like when we see waves in the ocean, the wave is kind of, it's separating from the ocean. It's still connected to it, and then it ultimately goes back into the ocean. So to recognize that our true essence is Akaal Purkh.
Exactly.
And not just, Akaal Purkh's out there and we need to go to Akaal Purkh. It's rather go inwards to find or to remember, to recognize that we are in fact one with God.
We are one,
just forgotten.
And there's no difference.
Right.
And that comes back to the chain reaction. So we have, and that's the challenge Maharaj gives to us. We've been sent on this earth, and everything's telling us that you are different. You are separate. I am Harshdeep, and everything's telling me I am. When my family comes to me, it gives me attachment. It's telling me that I'm a separate being. Or when money comes to me, it's giving me greed. It's telling me I'm a separate being with my own goals. But then we invest in Sangat, we invest in Naam, and then it balances it out. And a compliment to Shabad to what Panji, the beautiful point Panji just made, is it comes twice in Gurbani. Bhagat Namdev Ji writes it in the first essay, which is Jab hum hote, tab tu nahi. And it's very straightforwardly written, exactly what Panji was saying. When I exist, then you don't. Jab tu hi, main nahi. And when there's you, then I don't exist. And it's very pretty much as simple as that. The game of ego, and you don't have to think more than that. You don't have to think more. What about this? What about the path and the point and the good and the bad and the karma and all the stuff that's building up? Forget about all that. Realize that I am in essence a Akaal Purakh. I'm trying to be one with the Akaal Purakh, and just to ardas that Maharaj wash away everything else. Let me forget everything else and be one with you.
So it's homemade that causes dubda.
Hanji?
It's homemade that causes dubda.
Dubda is
duality, like separation.
Home is an existence. Home, we think of it, because the word ego isn't the right word for home. Word ego is an English word, right? So it doesn't fit. Such if I was to ask you, tell me what jute is in English, you won't find a fitting word. Someone will say hygiene, someone will say cleanliness. It doesn't fit. And it doesn't exist in the English language. Same as home, because in essence we're saying I. I doesn't cause something. I is just an existence. It is ultimately the enemy you're fighting. And that's ultimately what you're trying to get rid of. Dobda is the double love which is causing the build-up of I. So Dobda is basically the word that fits around everything. Dobda meaning duality, meaning the love for the other. So whenever you're investing in something else, you're investing in your Dobda, which is causing I. And it's building up. So I is ultimately the existence of you. And there's nothing, it's not something that causes something else. It's ultimately they're just basically the lowest point. So if we go back to the Rahatnama, just to see where I was. Vaheguru Purmansa Jap, Kar Ishnan Pare Jap Jap. And so the next line by Nandalaji gives is, and this comes back to Nitnem. So another controversial thing that's discussed often is Nitnem. And I'm gonna pull this out of my phone. I haven't memorized it completely. And it's the answer for Nitnem. Because we often get, I believe this for the first 2 or 3 years. Just going back on me, I've only had Amrit for about 4 years. Before that, if you ask VG back there, when I met him, I couldn't even speak Punjabi properly. It's too funny. I grew up in a town in New Zealand actually. I was born and raised in New Zealand. And there was only about 40,000 people at that town. So I was the only Asian in my school. So I was like, just pure English. And I was into everything. So I had a mohawk, I was drinking and all that stuff. So I was completely separate. And when I came into Guru Sahib's Bana, I got one perspective of Sikhi. And that perspective was that Nityanem doesn't exist. So the Shabad I'm going to is Jaise Deepit Patang Lord Ho. It's a beautiful Shabad. That Nityanem is a habit, is a ritual. And it comes back to the Nityanem thing again, right? So again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go through by Nandalaji's Ratnama, which is, and break it down unless if we can make sense of it. Now before I move forward, can anyone shed light on Nityanem? Why do we do Nityanem? Like I said, I was in the belief system that Nityanem is just a ritual. Why should I repeat and repeat and repeat? Why don't you just kind of read the meanings? And it makes sense. Logically speaking, if you go by Guru Granth Sahib Ji, you could easily make that argument. Why don't you just like Parvargadi Lidiya? Why don't you just read, rather than reading, repeating, why don't you just sit down, read one pauri a day and just understand it? And that's the thinking I had taken on, and that's what I was doing up until a couple of years ago, when I was basically taught the reason to do Nityanem. Can anyone shed light on why we do Nityanem?
I mean, to that perspective, like, let's see if you're a professional ball player, you can look at like how do you shoot the ball. You can study all the principles behind it. How much arc that you need. Like they've studied sports medicine, all that. But in order to get that, you have to shoot. Like some people shoot like 3,000 to 4,000 shots a week and every day. It's a repetition thing. Like don't do it until you can get it right.
That's a beautiful way to put it. That's actually, I'm going to use that analogy. Thank you. Hold on to that one. Anji Viji?
Just for the sake of argument, devil's advocate.
Yeah, I was going to put something forward as well.
What if I'm a history teacher and I've learned history, I only need to refresh on it like once in a while and I'm good to go?
Yeah.
But it is not in this case, this is not a history thing, but here we're talking about practicality, right? We're not studying the history of basketball, we're studying the game itself that is being played right now. You can't say what Michael Jordan did. You have to worry about what you're going to do, how you're going to make. You can't use Michael Jordan's game to defend your perspective.
Yeah, and he's very eager.
Well, with the history one, I mean, history is one-sided. It's the story of the victor. So it is going to change, and it's not going to be the same. I mean, even with Sikh history, when the missile wars and stuff happened after Guru Gobind Singh Ji passed, like that history is barely now coming up. People are actually learning about it, finding it out and stuff. And I mean, you have PhD students, candidates, at Columbia, the Ivy Leagues, trying to, get that out into the world, and it's just, it's changing our history now. And so the textbooks are now being changed in that regard.
So I suppose a better example, and
no, this is good.
To prelude, I'm
this
only
is
saying this because if we look at the Sub in a logical sense and not a spiritual sense, then let's take out history, let's take out basketball, let's take out all that stuff. If we look at Christianity.
I like basketball.
If we look at Christianity, right? I may be ignorant to this fact, but I don't think they do like one Nethanim where it's like, Albania Jari Bible.
I went to a Catholic school my whole life. So doing a Hail Mary 10 times, 100 times a day. They have the rosary beads with the cross. Doing Hail Mary, doing the creed, the Apostles' Creed. They've got quite a few. The name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Amen. And Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Amen. And Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
But then again, why do they need to do that? If you can get it just by reading it once.
Yeah, well, that's true. So actually, there's two, because I've got a jawab for you and I've got a jawab for VG here. So the jawab for you was that Guru Sahib is giving an instruction. And if we're repeating the instructions without following the instructions, so if we're studying the instructions and the instruction is to read the instructions, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The instruction is to continuously read, because if you look at Bhai Veer Singh Ji, which is a beautiful example, he said every time I read, it changed. And he said to have done 100 translations of Japji Sahib, which I don't even get like one out of. I can't even get my first one straight. But this is, and this comes through contemplating. Gurbani, if we look at it at a surface level, that is a set of like just as writing, then yes, read it once and it's in. But Gurbani is like something you look into and it just doesn't end. Right? And so exploring and contemplating is the job of it. And this Shabad will clear light on that. This Shabad I'm going to give to you. Virji, my jawab to you would be, if you were to say that about Nitnem, is that, where was I again? I had one for you. If you just let me just reflect on it. What's the purpose of repeating if you don't know it? If you don't actually know what you're saying? And Maharaj gives us jawab for all this.
I mean, could it also be like the repetition is for, because if we're changing all the time, our translation and our understanding of the Bani is changing every time, because the Gurbani is renewed all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Right. It's always new. And it can be in your perspective or someone else's perspective. So if you just read it one day, you're just going to look at it the way you looked at it 11 years ago.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful.
And also it depends on your experience, like your state of mind. You're not always happy, always sad. So like every time you read it, if in my personal experience, like sometimes when you're not feeling it right, things aren't going right. When you redo parts, it's a different experience when you're doing happy. So every time it gives you a different perspective of different stages, even if it's the same Bani.
We have a lot of Bani, such an Asadi where we have the Shabad and Guru Sahib saying that reading, you're missing the meaning basically. And then you have Guru Sahib continuously saying that Vichar Shabad. So what if I was to put forward that I only know English, I don't know any Gurmukhi, I don't know any Punjabi, and for me, reading Nitnem is like speaking Chinese. So what would you put forward to someone like that? And because you're right, the meaning does change, but what if you've never grasped, like you're saying, and this happened actually, we have a singer that does Kirtan, a little 9-year-old, and he loves to get like all up there with the AKJ guys. He loves to imitate those guys, with the Wagru, and he's singing People Bol Khandedar, and he's going, Manmukhi Duvela. He's happy, he's saying Manmukhi Duvela, and then he's like, Waheguru, Manmukhi Duvela, Waheguru. So it's very ironic. And Bhai Harshdeep Singh, you guys probably know Bhai Harshdeep Singh. Power! And get off the Vajra. But the point there is that he was doing the opposite thing. He's just sitting there repeating it. And what would you say? And there's an answer for this. But what would you say to that argument? They're just repeating words. They have no meaning to you at all. It's like reading Chinese. Anji?
I'd give him the spiritual answer, which is these are
this guy's a bit like, he just jumps the fence and is like, I'm spiritual again.
It's an argument you can change. So I guess the spiritual answer is more towards, these are God's words. And
beautiful.
And when you're speaking them, and if you don't understand them, there's a rhythm to them. It's written in a way where it speaks to your soul and not just to your ears and your manmat.
Beautiful. No, that's actually something very important. I think there's a big misguidance in our Panth these days when we're trying to prove it all. Everything has to be proven, everything has to be made logical so that the other person can understand. And we get caught up in that and we lose our own faith. We think, hold on. Because I'm always doubting this stuff. Maharaj has given me a mind of doubting continuously. But through doubting I learn. Now this is a Shabad that like, it's amazing how well this explains it. So this is from Bhai Harshdeep Singh. Can anyone tell me what Guru Arjan Dev Ji said about Bhai Harshdeep Singh?
There's a key to Guru Granth Sahib Ji.
Yeah, the key to Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So we, as upholders, as Akaal that's proven. Akaal that has proven it as one of the valid banis that we can sing in the Darbar. And is basically accepted in the Panth as the bani, right? Like now, next to Guru Granth Sahib Ji. This is from Bhai Sahib's Kabit. And I love this Shabad. I'm always trying to memorize it. I'm almost there, but it's a tricky one. जैसे दीप दीपत पतंग लोट पोत होत कबू के जवारा मैं परत जब जाए है जैसे खग दिनर पत चोग चुग आवे ओढ़ काहूं दिन फांसी फासे बेवचो न आए जैसे अल कमल कमल प्रत खोजे नित कबहूं कमल दल संपट समाय है तैसे गुरबानी अफगान करत चित कबू मगन हवे शब्द उर जाए है. And here's what Bhai Sahib tells us. Jaise deep deep. So, do we know what a diva is?
Yeah.
A diva is a light, a candle. Jaise deep deep patang lord pot ho. In Gurbani, in Gurmukhi, the word patang means